I feel
Oh
like the
my
acid's
god.
kicked in.
Oh my god.
What's happening?
Okay, we're
Yeah.
live again, guys. Back
I'm
from break.
frightened, Chris.
This guy doesn't know when we're live or we're not. This is
You just
he
you
was.
just played a trick on me and told me that we were fucking
I always
live.
tell
What
you when we go live. Jeez, man.
the
All right.
fuck?
Okay, so we'll get a quick, I guess, overview on League of Legends All Stars, which happened last weekend, and Richard was actually there. I know this is a StarCraft show. A lot of people think of it as a StarCraft show, so we won't make this too long here. So, Richard,
That's
tell
what
Hint,
she said.
hint.
tell us about League of Legends All Stars. How was it? How was it in Paris, Texas?
Okay, so what would you like to know specifically, young Christopher Chan?
No, how was the event? Like, was the crowds huge? Was it like pretty electric in the
Okay,
venue?
so right, atmosphere-wise, it was actually surprisingly a great event because when we got in Paris, like I don't generally I've not had it historically had a good time in France or at French events. I don't know why that is. I think when the country discovers concepts such as courtesy and the customer is right. That those kind of ideas. I think when they get to France, I think I'm going to have a swell time. Until that day,
Yep.
I've generally struggled because I work in an industry where things are kind of time dependent, and when people don't want to help deliver that, it can be very difficult.
Yeah.
So we were at the hotel in it was a pretty not a great part of Paris, but it was a short walk to the arena. And when we walked up to the arena, it was like it looked like a fucking warehouse outside. I was like, that cannot be. No, seriously, I was like
A
that.
warehouse?
A
Oh my
warehouse. I even
god.
had
Okay.
forklift truck like drivers outside and shit. Like there was pallets and there was like workers doing shrugging gallically and scratching their ass or whatever. And I was like, this can't be All Stars. I walked a bit further and
You
there
went
was
through
just
the back, man. That's what
yeah.
happened.
And
Okay.
no, but the whole thing was like that. And then when I got inside, it was like, holy fucking shit, this looks really good. I mean, not like dream hack amazing, I gotta say.
Okay.
And I've even been to I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Finnish event Assembly. That's super awesome. A really underrated atmosphere there. But it wasn't like mind blowing. And I imagine for all the people in the press room, all 12 of us, um, uh, for those people who've been to Worlds, they probably felt a little bit underwhelmed. But it was still fucking pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was about €9 for a Heineken.
That's expensive.
Solid.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about that. But yeah, and you know what, man? The crowd, everyone who traveled and everyone who went there should be really proud of how they conducted themselves.
Meaning what? They cheered when they should, and they
Nah, because esports crowds can be fucking dicks. I mean,
Were
let's.
they even did they
like
take
how?
showers and everything? I didn't see any of the posts going up where it's like, "Hey guys, just to remind you all, remember to wear deodorant and not
I
be
love
fucking
those posts.
retarded."
Those are the best.
Yeah.
I was. I mean, I was at.
Here we
Obviously,
go.
I was in the press room, so obviously that's usually the worst smelling place. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
Although,
You're kind of kidding.
yeah, although, okay, no, but generally we're an unwashed bunch. But yeah, so I didn't smell any BO, like not really. Like, which is amazing for an esports event. I mean, seriously. And League of Legends is famous for before an event or before an LCS weekend, they have a recurring Reddit thread crop up and it says, before this event, remember to have a shower. And again, you know how like I'm doing that? They're kind of only half joking. You do. I mean, yeah, I've been in the ESL studio, for example, when they've been filming an LCS thing, and there's some stinky gamers. But this was great. Everyone was fresh, well done. But that isn't what I'm talking
Handing out
about.
deodorant at the gates. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I'm not just talking about, what made the event great wasn't the lack of BO, although it was a real big contributory factor. But the crowd managed to straddle that line between being like they were cheering for the home team, which was Fnatic, and
Yep.
obviously more so because they've got a French player in the form of Soaz. But they were cheering for them, obviously, and Fnatic didn't do too hot, to be honest.
No, they didn't.
But they applaud everyone they played. they gave respectful ripples of applause when they made a good play. There was no boos. I mean, like you compare this to an American event, and again, I don't want to annoy any Americans because you obviously are they're very easy to upset the American people. Just ask Iraq. But that's a joke. Okay, let's not go down that road.
No. Let's go down that route. Let's go down that route. So what do American crowds? What do American crowds, esport crowds? How do they react to?
Okay, so right, what happened for example, like if you watch the average LCS thing, it's the TSM chants. The TSM chants.
That's the home crowd. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
but they're all the home crowd. But it's like, they call out positions when a ganks come in. TSM. It's hardly a sophisticated chant. To give you an idea of the difference between the two crowds, okay, you have in America TSM, which sounds a little bit like USA. You see what I'm doing here, right? Okay. Now
that's a reach, man. Okay.
Whenever anyone was picking Pantheon at All Stars, you had chants of "This is Sparta" whenever it was picked, and that happened periodically throughout the game. And occasionally, from nowhere, the crowd would just go like "Ooh, ooh, ooh," like in 300.
Okay, sure.
That's going to be in the highlights now. I've just realized. So that's and I did that as well. Which kind of
just so I can follow.
Be the
the TSM thing was retarded, but shouting 300, that's not retarded.
No, that's not retarded. That's actually quite clever.
Okay. Just checking. All right.
Okay, cool. Glad we've established that as fact.
I was just checking.
Good. Okay.
Richard's list of pre-approved non-autistic behaviors.
No, the thing is, though, Stephen, right? I'm a football fan. Yeah, I go to regular sporting events, and what I deem to be, you've got the shit chants. Right, you've got the shit chants, which are like really boring vanilla. You can always tell who's been going to football games for a long time based on what songs they sing or what chants they do. And if they sing this like vanilla bullshit, they've only been going to fucking football games for like the last 6 months, if at all. They're an armchair fan. But if they know the real songs, the clever songs, or they can even make up a song on the spot, real fan, right? Okay, so what I'm saying is the European crowd, in terms of chanting alone, had more in common with a mainstream sports fan. But the most important thing in all of this tirade, and you tried to sideline me and make me say nasty things about Americans, and shame on you for doing it, Chris.
Just call me Anderson Cooper, dude.
You're so Machiavellian. So the point I was trying to make was that the crowd, like every time Fnatic lost, which was often, they gave them loads of applause, loads of encouragement, but the winning team, standing ovations, chants. I mean, they were just so into the game and so respectful of all the teams, and it was just really cool to see. It was like, when you try and pitch what like good things about esports, without wanting to sound too cliche, I would point to that as an example, that they respected everybody equally across the board. And I mean, it wasn't that way when they were online. That OMG, I think, got flamed to shit by the Chinese community.
Really?
I think one player's even thinking about considering retirement. The abuse got so bad. But it was an exhibition tournament, and they put on a great show. But domestically, the fans that travelled there were exemplary. I mean, seriously, well behaved, respectful of boundaries, with almost no exceptions. Just a great fucking esports crowd, which it makes it even more of a shame that Riot dropped the ball on the people that were non-English speakers. Not having
the casters, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, so they had French casters. For StarCraft fans who don't know about this, it's the global esports all-stars event, and they have French casters because it's in France. Now, a lot of people traveled from all over the world to come and see this, and they were told there would be an English alternative provided at the venue.
What would it be? Like translations coming through a headset or something?
Right. Okay. Because they were doing an English broadcast anyway with the original casters, your D-Man, your Joe Miller, your Quickshot. So I think those kind of chaps, they were at, well, not Quickshot actually, he was hosting the analyst desk, but the casters were there. Jack was there, people like that were there, but they didn't ever cast to the crowd. They broadcast the cast that was online through an FM radio receiver that you could buy for €10. Now,
a little more than Heineken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a little more than a Heineken. But here's the thing: the FM broadcasting radios were pedometers. They had the word pedometer on them. They were small blue. They looked like they cost about $2 to make, just to get a third currency in there, so it's even more confusing. And they, they were cheap. They were not worth €10, and people couldn't hear them over A, the French casters, or B, the fucking 300 obsessed crowd chanting behind them. So Riot staff tried to find an alternative for them, which pretty much amounted to, sorry, here's a refund, have some skins. Just please don't make a Reddit thread about it, thanks. And
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, they had a guy on day 2 come out to the crowd and say, oh, by the way, those pedometers we pretended were like FM radio broadcasters? There's European legislature that prevents us from turning them up any louder. Dude, they can't go up any louder physically unless you maybe got into them with a screwdriver or something. I'm not an electrician, but I certainly know that they had a maximum volume, which they couldn't go any louder than. But they made up some sort of weird thing about European legislature and safety
They should
laws.
have just pulled up Twitch, man, and put on a headset on with their phones.
Yeah.
Do you have
So
any insight to why Riot let something like this happen? Because that seems like a tremendous oversight. Because
Yeah.
the English casters are what you pay the premium for sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't even know who the French casters are.
well, I mean, they were really good from what I was told by French dudes at the event. So I definitely don't want to be too disparaging about them. They may even have come up with the idea for the super cool and totally non-artistic, according to Stephen, 300 chants. They might have started it. Who knows? But the reality is, I think Riot. I know. I look. I'd love to come on here and shit on Riot, because I generally tend to when they fuck up, because no one else will, right? But I know enough that when you go to certain countries, you encounter problems that you couldn't possibly foresee. And I honestly think that this was one of those issues. I think that promises were made about what kind of equipment would be available to them. And honestly, looking at how shit the pedometers were, I think that was a last minute contingency, if I was to be a betting man. And I think it was a contingency Riot made, probably at their own expense. And I think the fact that it didn't turn out the way they had hoped was probably very disappointing for them. And they tried to save a little bit of face, but there were numerous people. I mean, in the hotel I was in, I was drinking in the bar every night and talking to fans that had traveled from all over, and they were all of the same mind. They were like, I've come all this way, I don't speak French, I've paid. I mean, people were even buying scalped tickets on eBay to go to this event. Like, people had got the tickets and then were selling them on eBay at a profit, which is, I think, the first esports event I've ever heard of doing that. So some people had paid ridiculous amounts of money to be there, £400 and shit, and they couldn't even hear the casting in English, and that really sucks for those fans. It's a long way to travel in some instances to not even be able to understand what the commentators are sort of saying.
Right.
And I don't know if they'll do an event in France again. I think as benchmarks go, this probably is, shouldn't be the fucking. It certainly wasn't a very good advertisement for overcoming a language barrier in a game that's ostensibly meant to be global. But overall, I'd say the event was successful in doing what it needed to do, which was to provide a opportunity for fans of the game to meet the players, see the players from all over the world, and interact with them in a variety of prearranged, autograph signing and take a selfie with me bullshit events. But it was for a company of Riot's size to make that sort of error, or to not even have a contingency for the contingency, was a bit surprising for me. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, outside of that, how are the games? And I mean, I caught like maybe about 5 or 6 of the games, honestly. How was just everything?
I thought it was great. I mean, I think the fundamental problem that we all had was that everybody knew that SKT and OMG was A, going to be the final, and B, that group stage match was going to be probably the best game, the series.
The tournament,
And it was, and they were. So it wasn't very, what's the word? It didn't throw up a lot of fucking curveballs for us.
Yeah.
The main narrative that people at the event wanted to follow was how are Fnatic going to do, and Fnatic didn't do too great. There's a lot of drama brewing up around that team off the back of the All-Stars performance, which I think's a little strange because remember, this is an exhibition tournament, prize money on the line or not. The format kind of sucked. I don't think there's any getting away from that. It was like a mini Worlds. That's not what an All-Star tournament should ever be about. They should have done what they'd done the previous year, which is create teams from each region and have them battle it off. I think that would have got people way more hyped. But it was a very nice little functional tournament.
Yeah.
And as Monte Cristo said right at the start, he goes, whenever you're going into a tournament, just bet on the Korean team. And there you go.
Welcome to StarCraft also, man. And now they're feeling the pains that the StarCraft community's felt.
Yeah,
at
this rate, European fucking StarCraft players will start winning again.
God.
But not North American ones, obviously.
Okay, well, good stuff. Good event from Riot, and I'm sure the All-Stars will continue into next year too. I guess before we move on, I was going to talk a little bit of Hearthstone, but before we do that, did you guys see the prize pool for TI, the international, or what it's up to now?
Astronomical and growing by the second. Was it 4.6 million?
Oh my god, I'm bringing it up. It's at 4.6, 4.7 million right now. It's insane.
I think they're gonna hit all of their stretch goals.
Cody Connors has got his lie alarm. I've got my Dota Twitch. Can I just mute the Skype while you fawn over the international like everyone else in esports? Okay, cool.
Look at this shit.
197%
increase. My god. Look at
yeah,
that.
it's big. The qualifiers have been pretty good too. There was a little bit of drama last night because, as what happens frequently in group stages, the last game of the night was irrelevant for one of the teams playing, and they sort of dicked around a little bit, caused a bit of controversy. They made a three-way tie occur.
On purpose?
Well, not on purpose. Like it was unorthodox play. I don't think they intentionally threw the game they were playing to win, but yeah, that caused a little bit of controversy. There's a just huge debate about whether it was sportsmanlike or whether it being sportsman or like mattered on Twitter last night. You could see a lot of the pastors. Yeah,
I mean, we get that. If you're going to be in a situation where it's not going to mean anything for one of the parties, that's usually a tournament format issue more so, or an event format issue more than anything else.
Yeah, so it was Team Liquid, I guess, and that's one of the reasons it was such a big deal because
there he goes.
Yeah.
Nice. Well done, Cody.
Okay, awesome. I guess that's it since I don't know how many of you guys follow it, but it's gonna be a lot of money. It's gonna be kids playing video games for a lot of money in July.
What was it last year? I forget what the total was last year. It was 3, right?
2.7. It was 2.7.
2.7? Oh my god! First place is almost 2.7.
Yeah.
That's insane. What do you think it's gonna get to? You think it's gonna get to 6?
I think it'll go all the way to 6.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Why isn't anybody else doing this? Oh my god, they're actually going to make a profit on this event.
Yeah.
Seriously,
sure.
right? I mean, this event's going to be paid for and they're going to make a profit on this event. This is crazy.
Ticket sales, compendium sales, yeah, it should be. I mean, I can't pretend to know the financials, but I imagine they got to be making money on this.
And you can expect the one after this to be even bigger again.
Yeah, you know, it's going to just continually get bigger. God,
of course it will. Yeah, of course it will.
Imagine that. Wow. Okay.
It's going to take something bad happening, or I mean, I still can't quite conceive of how over the top everyone gets about the international. Like seriously, you would think esports has one event a year. And it's the international. I don't get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great because it brings the mainstream media in for a week, and then they fuck off and don't talk about us again until oh my god, it's up to 6 million. Okay, now esports is real again.
Well, what's the user base for Dota 2 like right now? What's the total? Do you know?
Yeah, they did recently announce actually, Valve. I think
they had a peak concurrent user of they somewhere in the 700,000s. That was something that was announced or noticed because you can just track it straight through Steam shortly after the
700,000.
So I have no idea.
Guys, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. What about Heroes of the Storm coming in and shutting down the international? I mean, that's really the obvious.
How much money can we raise with no ability to give money to anything?
I've seen the very impressive stream numbers so far that the game has been.
We could
getting.
buy packs. We could buy some Hearthstone packs. You could buy
what
1 million
did-
Hearthstone packs.
This is very loosely related, but we were joking a lot about or I mean a long time ago, my stream in the past, we joked about like Steve Blum doing like Abathur voice packs for StarCraft 2 to buy that shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I mean, like that would be a funny way to raise money. Oh my fucking god, dude! Call of Duty is releasing or has released the Snoop Dogg fucking voice pack.
Seriously?
Did you see that shit?
No. Let me see
Fucking
this.
Snoop
What is
Dogg did
this?
voices for one of the fucking new Call of Duties for one of the class or whatever.
No.
Holy fucking I'm
No.
like I legitimately like I was awake, I was a little hazy. I almost bought Call of Duty just to have the fucking Snoop Dogg voice pack. It was on
What is this?
Yeah, I bet.
Holy crap! Let me see this. Oh my god, hear this. 30
should post the,
Snoopiest Snoop Dogg lines in Call of Duty. Oh, hold on, there's an ad. Hold on, I gotta see this.
Just so you know, I already feel like this has been trumped, depending on who you think's cooler. But like Samuel L. Jackson did the announce pack for Han.
Round jam, I'll be ready, man. Yeah.
We can't hear it.
You
Oh, we
Yeah,
motherfuckers born good
Just
shit.
pretend we can
love.
hear
I
it. We
appreciate the way
could
y'all
guess.
handled that business.
Oh right, so laugh.
We lost the lead, you mark
Snoop
that
Start
trick.
it. Here.
Guard dog ready? Yeah, the
Here.
pussy's afraid.
Oh my god.
Guard dog rolled over for good. Trinity rocket in your back pocket.
This is awesome, dude.
Friendly Trinity rocket sounded in
Like literally, like this is probably one of the coolest fucking things I've seen any developer do in a long fucking time. Holy, what a fucking genius fucking idea! Oh my god.
But there's another round. All ready. It's your fate to activate.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson would be awesome
Enemy
too.
behind looking for your behind.
Yeah, I think
I'll be behind, looking at your behind.
Cody keeps saying something. I don't know what game you're talking about. Han? What's that?
Yeah, Heroes and
I
New.
remember that a long time ago. I
Here's a
remember
newer.
The
Smoke up,
dark
dog.
times before.
that. Heroes of New York, you said?
Yeah, New York.
Yeah.
Are you like Godzilla?
Yeah, it's like Rampage. It's like that with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, you've got Giuliani in there. He's pretty OP. It's great.
Only
That's
buy
awesome.
medium sodas. So
Okay, well, that's a good idea. That's
Oh,
definitely
I
a
know.
very good idea. Snoop Dogg voice pack.
Let me
That's
buy
also easy to
Abathur
do
voice.
too.
It is.
easy
Yeah,
to
it
do.
is really easy. You just have to pay for the talent. You go to a studio, fucking record. Fuck. Oh man.
Easy. All right, let's move on. A little bit of Hearthstone talk now. Since
Hang on, you haven't done the international anywhere near enough justice there.
I mean, it's
Well,
not.
you-
It's
you
still
should
2
talk
months
about-
away. It's still a month.
You
and a half
yeah,
away.
well, you should talk about it a little bit more. I think Cody
just
actually
wait.
knows about it, and
We
I
gotta
don't.
gotta save up some, man. We still got like 6 weeks until the damn thing. So
yeah, there's going to be a lot of Dota. One of the things that is interesting that I guess we could talk about that's sort of esports at large, not necessarily Dota specific. It doesn't take a lot of knowledge about Dota specifically.
Yeah.
Is there is a sort of feud between. So they have hubs, right? They have the European hub, which is hosted in a good studio, and the North American hub, which is hosted in
Dota.
the BTS studio. And there's a perceived sort of rivalry between the two.
Okay. All right.
And I think Toby did a big Facebook post today. I saw Hellspawn retweet it, and I read it from there. And he
there's-
sort of says, like, you know, if you're uncomfortable with your product, you should be focusing on your product and not trying to slam other.
Wait, so we're talking
Other
about
people's
BTS versus Too Good Studio?
Yeah, that's the perception. That's the perception.
Okay.
Whether that's
What?
you know.
They're like
whether,
friends. What the fuck? Okay.
Well, you're competing for stream numbers, and you're allowed to sell the international qualifiers this year too, which you couldn't do before.
oh.
I mean, and
wow,
if you
okay.
have they're broadcasting for 10 hours a day, and they flew a bunch of people into their studio. You probably want your broadcast to be paid more attention to than others, right?
Yeah.
So I thought maybe this would be a more compelling conversation than it is with you guys, but that was kind of interesting. I found it interesting, this sort of little rivalry that was going back and forth, and all the
Thing is, I'm happy to have the
chat.
conversation, but you know, I try and have that little moment where it's like,
His buzzer's going off like nonstop. and
yeah,
he says
just
what
stop,
it is.
just stop talking to people for a
No,
moment.
we'll be talking a lot more, I think, leading up to it. I didn't know they could sell the qualifiers. That's
That's you're allowed to have
crazy.
ads on it now.
Mm.
yeah, I got it. Well, I guess that's good. I mean, because the studios, they weren't getting paid jack shit before, right?
Yeah, I believe
all.
it was expected that they do it for free last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I think both of them are brought to you by Monster Energy. If I'm not mistaken.
Wow. Okay. Now we know where Monster went.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's talk a little bit Hearthstone, and I really just want to talk about two things. One is my event. So I'm doing an event, Deck Wars season finale or season finals this Saturday and Sunday. going to be 12 of the deck word winners. They're going to play in a live online event, which last week Tavern Takeover, which is another Hearthstone event, got a lot of shit because the matches weren't actually live, and it was stupid. It was like the dumbest drama about whether it was live or not. There hasn't been any online tournaments that have been live, so it was kind of dumb what happened there. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because the Tavern Takeover was done by this small studio in North Dallas, PvP Live. And if you guys didn't catch the viewership was 40. I think it maxed out at 48,000, which from like just a third-party small studio doing like an 8-man invitational Hearthstone is pretty crazy.
Relatively untested too.
Yeah, it was like it was their first Hearthstone event ever. And they had Azale. Azale actually hostcasted it, and Admirable, Hearthstone player, co-casted with him live. The casting was live, but the games themselves were pre-recorded. But pretty crazy. I mean, when a third party live weekend tournament basically gets more viewership than any other event we've seen so far, anything like ESGN or even DreamHack or even ESL, I believe. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Cody, what do you think of that?
I think Boss DH hit it on the head for me in that I think this year Hearthstone's going to be big once spectator mode comes out and it becomes easy to produce, because right now it's a huge pain in the dick. But
Dude,
once spectator mode hits and it reaches Android, and all these esports organizations now have like a new in to sell, right? Because now you can sell on these Android mobile devices. I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, the sponsors, the Samsungs, all those easy, just OEMs are going to be easy. I think they should be easy targets for sponsorships. Some of them are already in esports, so very, very easy, I would imagine. But yeah, it's pretty compelling. I mean, you still have to have the right people in the tournaments, obviously. Like the Tavern Takeover have Trump and Reynad in it, but pretty cool. I mean, it's really cool that somebody small like that can do it. And those guys, apparently, the PvP Live stuff, they do some WoW events too, and they're doing some good things over there.
Yeah, that's where I'd seen them before. They did a WoW tournament last year. One of the things that was interesting is that number was without a lot of the big name casters, right? So it didn't have your Crips or Artosis, I guess. To sort of, I mean, Azale's not huge in the Hearthstone community. He cast StarCraft 2 a little bit with Evil Geniuses, and then he was a WoW professional player. So I mean, those numbers are great, and I'm glad that everyone who was at the event, like I saw Trump make a post on Reddit, said it was really good. The only drama surrounding it was PvP Live learned their lesson about calling events, like, just because the casting is live doesn't make it a live event. People in esports are very aware.
It's kind of questionable the name of their brand too. Given that they should probably change the name of their company.
Yeah. PvP pre-recorded doesn't quite roll off the tongue though. That's a difficult brand to blow up, is PvP pre-recorded.
Yeah. Anyways, we should see some more of that. Hopefully this weekend will be good. Check it out, guys. It's actually, my Deck Wars event will be on twitch.tv/machinima, and it starts Saturday at 1 p.m. Lots of the top players. We don't have Trump in it and Reynad, but we have a lot of the top Hearthstone players that have won just the first 12 weeks, kind of battling it out for a nice prize. It would be me and Kiyuki casting.
I think there's enough Hearthstone people watching. Who do you have?
Let me just show you the asset real quick. I should have shown it. God, I've been telling all the players to show it. I'm not showing it on my own show. Nice, Chris. Nice. All right, so here it is.
You should get TB to play in it.
To play in it? Well, I mean, it's the past winners. So
yeah, but just have him as like the final boss.
The final boss.
The final boss.
Legendary. It's all legendary.
You got to play Total Biscuits all legendary deck for the prize money.
That'd be pretty funny.
Even I'd watch that, and I've never watched a Hearthstone thing at all, apart from what I've seen at events.
Right. Yeah, maybe one of these days. That'd be kind of fun.
I think that's really what's going to make it take off.
What TB being the last boss?
No, introducing the concept of final boss battles in esports, because you can't really do it in any other game. You should just say we've got a final boss. You win the tournament and then you play the final boss, and the final boss.
Yeah, but what if the final boss is like as good as the the very first guy you're supposed to play?
Then the tournament keeps the money and it rolls over to the next one.
Oh my god! If the final boss wins, holy!
Final boss tournaments, they're the future.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. A lot of players might be pissed at the end, but here it is. If you can take a look, got a Moz, Tides, Savitz, Kalento, Strive, Crow, Kungan, Admirable, Ecop. A lot of the top players from EU and NA going to be in this tournament. Should be
good.
very competitive. Should be good. Okay, let's move on to questions. I think we're, unless I left off. No, map contest. I forgot about that. Almost forgot. We're gonna, Richard's favorite.
Dead game.
Everyone forgets the map makers,
It's
man.
the dead game.
Everybody forgets the map maker. That's right.
Poor dudes.
So we talked about it a little bit last week, just the whole TLMC. But I failed to mention just a lot of the drama that was going on because I didn't actually know about a lot of the drama that was going on with the contests in regards to some of the maps being, being pulled from the contests early, and just really the amount of time that all the map makers had to make it. It was a really short period of time that they had to submit it and really get these maps approved by everybody because there's like guidelines and restrictions. So I figured I'd pull on Plexa, who is the person at TL that runs this contest. Does a really good job with it, and he's been on Climbing the Ladder talking about maps before. But I want to kind of get his thoughts on some of the things. So let me do that real quick. Hold on, let me go to this break screen real quick. While we get him on. Actually, I didn't even give him forewarning. It's going to totally. Jesse, what's up?
Hey man, what's up?
Hey. So you're live on the show, and
Yeah,
I figured we would pull you in on the discussion in terms of just talking about the TLMC,
Yeah, sure.
and in particular, just a lot of the drama that was surrounding it. Because we talked a little bit about it. We looked at all the maps, the winning maps, and all that stuff last week, but I wasn't aware of just how much, how much drama I guess was happening during the thing, in regards to just some of the maps being pulled and that sort of bit. So
Yeah, sure.
why don't you talk a little bit about it and why I guess some of the maps from some of the more well-known map makers were pulled.
Well, basically, it's probably worth talking about the whole contest and the time frame we had to get everything done and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, Blizzard came to us about, just at the end of March, basically saying, hey, look, we want to have another contest, but we need them by, I think it was the 5th of May. Otherwise, they're basically not going to be able to be considered for next season of Ladder or next season of WCS.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, right from the get-go, we're kind of a little bit limited on time. So, as a result, we had to make a few concessions. The most obvious of those being that the tournament we usually have, we just didn't have time to fit it in, amongst other things that were going on.
Right. Okay. Normally, you guys have a tournament each. And
Normally,
every
we have a
contest.
tournament
Yes.
to show off all the maps, but this time, between tournaments that were going on the weekends and whatnot, and just the chaotic scheduling of everything, it was too difficult for us to do. So we decided to cut that, and instead of a tournament, we had a little bit more time than we normally would. So then the decision came between do we have a revision period or do we give map makers an extra week to submit, basically. For this contest, we decided to give people an extra week to submit because we kind of threw them a curveball with another restriction that Blizzard were looking for.
Which
Basically,
was what?
Blizzard basically decided that they weren't really looking for two-player maps anymore. Well, at least not for this next season.
Okay. Right.
Most map makers make two-player maps because you can do a lot more with those. There's a lot more room for variety. There's less restrictions on what makes a viable two-player map than what makes a viable multi-sport maps. For a bunch of reasons, we can go into them if you want.
Okay.
And that was a bit surprising to a lot of people, particularly because of a much shorter time frame. So we felt like giving them an extra week to give them about 2.5 weeks or almost 3 weeks to submit maps, create their own 4-player maps or 3-player maps or 5-player maps or whatever, and submit those to the contest, as opposed to having some kind of revision period.
Okay. So I guess what happened was that most people made 2-player maps. Is that what? And then they had to like.
A lot of the top
Change
map makers are used to making 2-player maps.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that was the main controversy there.
It wasn't really a controversy. No one really had any issues with it.
Okay.
But at the end of the process, when we look back on the maps that we got for the 4-player maps or the 5-player maps or whatever that we got, a lot of them had like really basic errors that really shouldn't be in 4-player maps. Things like allowing all spawns when your close rush distance is about 30 seconds. That's just been tested time and time and time again, that's just broken. You need to have at least a separation of 40 seconds between naturals. Otherwise, bad things happen, basically. And, you go back to things like Steps of War, and I don't think anyone wants to go back to Steps of War.
Well, okay. Well, we can talk about that. So,
Yeah, sure.
what exactly? All right. So when you say it's been tested time and time again, I mean, the way the game's currently played, I think I would agree with that. Like, I think, this kind of macro style or this style of which we see it each and every day would be somewhat, I guess, compromised if they were any closer. But I think if we replayed Steps of War these days, with the level of play that all the players have right now, wouldn't
Dude,
it?
if I got 2-base Swarm Host against Protoss on Steps of War, oh shit.
Right. Exactly.
Yes,
Okay.
Steps of War would play out a bit differently. And I mean, Steps of War was kind of a cool map. I
No,
think that once you get past the first 2 bases, it's actually a really cool map.
Well, I mean,
The problem was getting to that point.
Well, we talked, Stephen, we've talked about it on this show, and Steps of War with a map like that, yeah, the 2-base swarm host would be pretty crazy, but I could see even just a lot of 1-base stuff just happening, right?
Yeah, sure.
That sort of it.
Sure.
And I feel like the main issue that people have with it is that it would encourage like one single base type of strategies.
Yeah, that's true.
What's-
I think
So
if you
what's
look at
wrong with
something
that?
like Daedalus Point, for instance,
Yeah, okay.
I think the reaction to that would be similar. If you ran a Steps of War type map in this meta on the ladder, I think you'll end up with a very similar response, where it's basically vetoed in every tournament. No one particularly likes playing it, and the map needs modification in some way. Unfortunately, that's the reality we live in.
Well, let's talk about why people don't like to play. I mean, people don't like to play them because they don't want to learn new maps, right? They just want to play the same. They want to be able to play the same way on multiple maps. Is
To
that
some
correct?
extent, that is correct, yeah. I would not disagree with that.
Yeah, so this was like, in me looking at this a lot, I thought this was really sad. No slight to you guys or anything, like I completely understand, but when you look at all of the, I guess I've never really put it all out in writing before, but when you look at the ungodly amount of restrictions you have on creating a maps, does that ever like depress you or?
To some degree, it does. I think in StarCraft 2, the accessibility of thirds is actually a real issue. Thirds need to be way more accessible than they had to be in, say, Brood War, for instance. And I think that places a whole bunch of restrictions on the type of maps that actually work and the type of maps that won't work. And that's a bit of a problem. But that comes back to game design, and we're not map makers aren't game designers. They just have to play with the rules that they're given.
Well, that's
Things like force fiddles.
I mean, I guess
I
it's
kinda
just, I
disagree
remember
with that,
in Brood
but-
War, maps were really important. Like maps had a really large influence on how like a given game would play out, right? Like
Yep.
some maps clearly favored one race over the other. Like it wasn't even like no, don't go like it was just like accepted. Like yeah, Terran always beats Zerg on this map. Like those were like there were clear imbalances in some maps.
Yeah,
Some maps were really interesting, but like in looking at like the list, like I mean like you mentioned easily accessible thirds. I mean like we've got like there's like 10 or 15 pretty heavy restrictions that are on this list to make a map work. It almost seems like with this many restrictions, you're
Okay.
more or less starting to churn out maps that look like one another. You know.
Let's clear up the list for a second.
it's this list, Jesse. I just
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm aware of what that list is. People have been talking to me a lot about it. That list is basically a formalized thought process that the judges went through when they're examining the maps, right? So when you've got a whole bunch of maps in front of you, what things are you looking for, so on and so forth. And to be quite frank, the vast majority of map makers aren't quite at that professional level yet, and there's a lot for them to learn. Primarily, that list is to help guide them for future contests. I want to point out Kentuva or Uvantak, who had 2 maps in the top 3 this time around. He's basically been improving on that standard mold season after season. TLMC3, he got a map. It was the unofficial 8th placing map in that contest. We had to cut it to 7, but if we had an 8th, he would have been there. And I think that he's just kind of taken this formula, kept working on it, tried to understand what standard, and improved himself that way. And I think now he's probably one of the best map makers at the time.
yeah, but you're talking about I get what you're saying, and he's kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
he's gotten better at I guess conforming to these restrictions
Yeah,
and building really high
You have
quality
to
maps.
understand what's standard before you can break it. That's the point I'm trying to get at here. the map makers which are capable of going, okay, look, I understand what makes a good map. Now I can make calculated decisions as to how to break that. And most people aren't at that level. That's just an unfortunate truth. That's the primary purpose of that thread. If someone like etc. who made Yonsu came to us with an interesting concept, we take that seriously. We look at it. Well, then they're looked at without names, of course. But you can tell from just looking at the map that a map maker knows what he's doing and has made these decisions when he decides to actually break something that was the norm.
Right. So, Stephen, what do you think of some of these restrictions, though? Like, because I totally get your way of looking at Plexa. Where
I mean,
you have these restrictions, you got to follow them. But you guys, in some ways, are the people that can break these restrictions.
Again,
right?
They're not hard rules.
I know they're not hard rules, but they're general concepts you're adhering by.
Well, no. So
Right.
what Plexa, the way that Plexa describes it is actually completely and totally acceptable. Basically, do you know how you get like musicians that will try to like make like new music and it sounds like fucking garbage and it's just like a bunch of jarbled
Yeah,
garbage,
sure,
like whatever.
sure.
And the reason why it sounds like garbage and why you have no respect for people like that is because, or like a lot of contemporary artists, because you have no fucking idea like what you're even deviating from. Like, how do you know this is new age, or how do you know you're breaking the rules when you don't even know the fucking rules yet? Basically, what Plex is saying is that if you're not even capable of designing like a well accepted, normal, ordinary map, why are you trying to make one that's super crazy? Like, you need to understand what the
Sure.
rules are
Okay,
before you
right.
can understand the effects of breaking certain rules. So I agree with that 1,000,000%. If that's what he's saying in regards to like this kind of list
that
of
is exactly what
suggestions.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the feedback from top map makers with regard to that thread is that there's nothing new for them in that list, and that's what I expected. They already know that stuff, basically.
So when you're judging these maps, though, how are the judges in general? How are they taking these type of things and breaking these type of things into account?
Like I said, this is just a.
I know it's a guideline, but
It's not even a guideline. This list came out as a result of the judging process. I talked with the people involved in the judging process, trying to look at the things that they were examining on the maps. Like rush distance is a classic one. We've had that forever. But just other things like accessibility as thirds and how map makers dealt with space and whatnot. I just tried to take what they had basically the things that they were thinking about when they were looking at these maps. I tried to convey that into words so that people can learn from it, basically.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We do see some new. We do see some interesting concepts with some of the new maps. Like there's the island map, right? I mean, the map that has the two islands, and there's a couple other concepts that I'd have to have in front of me that that I remember in a couple of the top two maps, I believe. So it's cool that we are seeing some new concepts, but a lot of the maps are still generally similar, right, to the maps we've seen in the past. I mean, little differences, but for the most part, the play is still going to be what we see today.
Yeah, sure.
And when are we going to get? I guess when will we probably see more radical maps? I guess from the contest.
Well, it brings up an interesting question about whether the ladder is the correct place to be testing concepts or not. With ladder being so ingrained with WCS, my personal opinion on that is that probably ladder isn't the best place to test extremely radical concepts. And you need to look to people like Total Biscuit and Shoutcraft, Pro League, places like that, where map concepts can be tested at a reasonably high level without ruining someone's tournament, basically, or ruining someone's experience on the ladder. And I think you see that in the maps that they select. Like a map like Mace, for instance, in Pro League, that does some pretty radical things, and we've all got eyes on it, trying to learn stuff from that map. And I think when you learn concepts from look at these maps in these various tournaments, see how they play out. You learn from that, and then that can be translated into something possibly more playable for the ladder. That said, if we happen to have another Red Bull-oriented TLMC in the future, that'll be more radical than previously.
Okay.
Mostly because we've got access to a tournament divorced from the ladder, basically.
Have you seen that just having things like TB's tournaments and like a Red Bull tournament actually helping you guys?
Yeah, I think they're really important to understand. Like they're the best means to understand how maps work. Mostly because you've got high level players playing.